It was obscene. We went from nothing to 49% of the market in 3 years because there was no competition.
Gary Shepard is the Director of Business Development at Sprint Enterprise Technology.
And it's data is the oil of the 21st century. A light switch has gone on where people have recognized the requirement for data and the requirement for good data. But there's been a fear. If I make my data available, somebody else is going to use it. And if somebody else uses it, do you need me? It's just a case. I've never spoken to an advisor that went, you know what, my CRM is the best thing I ever bought and I love it and I can't wait to come in the morning and turn it on. And you go, you know what, it really isn't rubbish. What's rubbish are your expectations.
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Check out some of the other ones on our website or on Spotify, YouTube. There will be stacks there that you're going to love as well. Thanks again. Gary, welcome.
Thank you.
I'd love to dig into your kind of thoughts or experience over the last kind of 10, 20, 30 years in financial planning and financial advice and technology. What are some of the trends you've seen and observations over that time?
First of all, thanks. It's great to be here. My life, in my working life in financial services, every time I've left, I get dragged back into it again. So I don't seem to be able to get out of it. I think there's the theme that runs through it all is trying to provide advisors with the right tech to do the right job. And that job has changed significantly over the last 30 years. When I came into the industry, I came in as being an advisor. So I was an IFA in a practice and we were buying hardware and software, and the managing director had no idea what a computer was. So he asked me to go off and do it. And when I finished it and bought it and hardware and software, I called the company up and went, I enjoyed that. Give me a job. I really enjoyed doing that. So that's where it started. And that was DOS-based applications with a little bit of a Windows-ish front end. It was really quite funny. Our boss used to call it was Windows. But we used to tell people it was Windows. No, it wasn't. It was absolutely not. But that really then was around, I think the interesting thing is that advisors never use tech, right? So you go into an office to see advisors or to see a firm and you'd talk to the office manager and the administrators, and the MD would usually be there. But the MD didn't even have a computer on his desk in those days. So we didn't have smartphones, right? There were no laptops. There was no iPads. There was no, nobody had a PC. The only people that had it, and they might only have one PC in the office, right? So one administrator would be using that. And what you were trying to do was to educate them, because everything they did was on paper. The new business register, right? So for the FCA, it's a red book. And everybody would go, how do you know that? Because everybody's got a red book for their new business register. And it was a book that you used to write new business in to be produced their FCA reports. That's what they did. And so when you're suddenly showing people tech, and people got very excited, but they also got very scared because it's the change in what they've been doing. Nobody likes change. They just don't. A lot of people do not accept change easily. And if you've been doing a certain thing a certain way for 10, 15 years, because remember, these are the days when advisors were mainly doing, if they did investments, it was mainly bonds, it was pensions, and that was it. There was nothing sexy or inviting really about investments. There was no CIPs, there was no MPS, there was no model portfolios. It was all made up. It was, third quartile pension funds as we know them now. So it was really exciting times because you were getting people, and people were seeing to see what the possibilities were. They didn't know what they were going to do with it, right? So they didn't know how it was going to affect them, but it was like that. So over that time, you've gone from that to now everybody's talking about AI, right? Hold on. The shift has been huge, and the difference in the mindset. But the funny thing for me that I find is that advisors haven't changed, right? Office staff absolutely have. Advisors haven't changed, because if I'm an advisor, I do one thing. I talk to my clients, right? And I don't want to do it with a computer in front of me. I want to have a face-to-face conversation. That's what I want to do. So I need the knowledge behind me to be able to walk in to have that conversation. But I don't necessarily want to have a bit of kit in front of me. I think things like Voyant, changed that when they started their cash flow, and it was designed to be used in front of the client with the with the client. Yeah, who thought of that? But yeah, to do that with a client, they changed that. So advisors might use cash flow in front, but they'd never go into their CRM or their back office. They'd never go into a suitability or risk reporting or product selection software and run a client through that. They'd never do it. They'd have that knowledge in their head before they walked into the meeting.
The way you described the kind of state of play or frame of mind of financial advisors when tech was first introduced feels really current. You could have used the exact kind of same. There's excitement, there's loads of stuff going on, but there's a fear: is it going to take our jobs? And to AI right now, so it's almost like there's just the way tech is.
Yeah, I think tech. I mean, God, what can I say? I've been doing it for so long. My life is tech, but actually, my life isn't tech. My life is talking to people. But you've got tech involved. Does that makes sense? So, what you got is, if you've got an advisor that's going to go and see a client, and an advisor wants to call a client, if an advisor is going to call a client just to have a chat, the client's likely to turn around and could ask any question. How's my ISA doing since the last time I saw you? The markets have been going up and down. Has that impacted me? What you don't want to do as an advisor is go, actually, you know what? It may have done. I don't know yet. I'm going to have to go back and check. You don't want to do that, right? So you need something in front of you that you can go, actually, your ISA's done okay. Your GIA is down a little bit, but your ISA and your pensions, ramping up. And actually, based on your cash flow, you needed 6% to achieve your goals. We're doing 7.5% so far this year. You're all good, right? End of the investment conversation. How are you doing? What's going on? That type of thing. So I think advisors, actually, interestingly for me, advisors have never changed. Right, I've not seen a paradigm shift in advisors with tech. There are advisors out there that live for tech and use tech everywhere. The guy that started our business, Sprint, I always tell people, if you want to know what's good in tech, you go and look at his desk, right? Because if it's on the desk, it's good. If it's under the desk, he's bought it and didn't like it, right? So from iPads to Surface Pros, he's done everything, right, in tech, and he loves his tech. You never know whether he's got a Samsung or an Apple phone, right? But his specialty is being in front of a client and just talking to them without tech. So I think and it's always going to be the same. I don't think it's ever going to change.
So I'm wondering, across that kind of period or span of experience, is there anything really that stands out to you as a pivotal moment for the industry, or even a project that you've worked on that really jumps to the top of the list?
I think there are a couple. And again, it's just show my age. So one would be when Mick Cons, Rory Curran, and John Buxton launched First Software back in 1996. They came out as the first Windows CRM system for advisors. And Rory had been, so Mick and Rory and John had all been at the Fame Group with LSD software. I mean, Daphne, who names the software LSD, right? But LSD software. Which was a CRM system predominantly designed for discretionary and investment advisors. And so, but they came out of that because the Fame Group didn't want to move it on, and they were getting lots of grief from clients. So they quit. Mick sat in his room and John sat in his room, and they just sat there and coded and built First Software, Advisor Office as we know it, which is now gone on to Iris and Xplan. And so First Software. Rory went off and did a bit of work at the Exchange. And I remember being at a conference in London. We were doing like one of the money marketing exhibitions that they used to do. Don't do that anymore. But that was great. And I was on the floor because I'd been drinking the night before, as we always did. And I'd fallen off a chair trying to adjust a light. And I'm laying on the floor, and Rory stood over me and went, "We need to have a conversation." And because what he'd done, it was revolutionary. Nobody had done anything like it. There was not a single piece of Windows proper, fully built from the ground up Windows technology in the industry. It was the first one. And we would go in, I joined him in 1997. We had 49, I think first at the time had 49 clients. We shared an office with Focus Solutions down in Wellesbourne. We walked past their 6 desks to get to our 6 desks. And, eventually one of us had to move out because we got too big. But I remember going into firms in 97, 98, walking into an advisor that had a DOS-based application, and just turning the screen on was enough for them to get excited. I mean, I wouldn't even get to the front door and they'd be going, where do I sign? And they didn't care what it did, right? It really was. It was the light had been turned on. That was one. That was huge. We wrote so much business. It was obscene. It was obscene. We went from nothing to 49% of the market in 3 years. Because there was no competition, right? There was no competition at that point. I think the other one that really that's come back to me was Y2K, right? Because you'd got all of these DOS-based applications that didn't know whether they were going to work on the 1st of January. They literally had no idea. And so you'd got advisors terrified. Terrified. But yeah, so what you'd got was you'd got a lot of innovation came out of that Windows application. So literally everything from contract inquiry, EDI commissions, all came out of that era. It wasn't really there before. But after the first software explosion, and then IntelliFlow came on the scene, JCS came on the scene. Plum had been around at the time. So I'd worked for Anne's husband at Fairs. She started Plum. They then turned Windows. So everybody then started to copy the leader, as they do, right? They started to, which was first. So that was really, really exciting time.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. And I suppose on reflection, like it looks almost obvious. You've got people using paper or using DOS-based systems. We've got this amazing technology coming. But I guess at the time, like how do you go from 0 to 1 and then kind of come up with that idea of we're actually going to create a Windows-based system for financial planning?
In those days, what happened is in an IFA practice, they would come in the morning and the first software advisor office was the first thing they turned on and it was the last thing they turned off, right? So, and everything, the whole business ran through it. It was that vertically integrated bit of kit, right? There was no cash flow modeling. If you wanted it, Mick did it. It was in first software, right? So everything was included in one application. The problem with that is that the industry's moved so far that those systems that try to be all things to all people simply don't do it very well. They might do it, but it's okay. It's average. Hence the birth of these industries. And a lot of them came about because of First Software and Advisor Office. A lot of them came out around it. It was a SQL database, right? So it wasn't web-based, right? So, we were there with the birth of Citrix. When advisors went, oh, right, I've got 2 offices. How do I connect them? Well, we use Citrix, So we were there literally at that point, and we then started working with firms we had firms that would go in and help them sort it out. But the advent of that one Windows application that took the market by storm meant that the industry spun off of that. If you look now, there's a whole bunch of people out there that are very successful that are all ex-First Software. It was a catalyst. It was an absolute catalyst and it didn't have to be First Software, right? It was the first one that came out with the right product at the right time. And we know that's quite rare to come out with the right thing at the right time. And they absolutely nailed it, but it made a huge difference to the industry.
And you mentioned kind of data or the underlying data model. And I think increasingly it feels like, that's the new currency. That's the new point of value. I wondered what your kind of observations have been of how that's changed. So with EDI feeds coming in and provider integrations, like it'd be just great to hear your thoughts and insights on that.
So data is a funny one, really, because it's the thing nobody thinks about. You don't think about your fuel in your car. I think I've likened it recently to power stations, right? So when you flick a switch in the house and it turns your electric on, turns your light on. You don't know where it's coming from, right? You don't know if it's coming from wind, solar. It could be coming from oil or gas, or you've got no idea, right? Unless actually some of the power suppliers are now doing it's purely renewable. But if you're not on that, you've got no idea. And actually, you don't care. That's the point. You don't care. What you care about is when you flick the switch, your light comes on. Data is the same as that, because advisors don't care. I just know when I want to produce a report for a client, it's got the data in it. But I don't know where it comes from. Surely you just go to platform, don't you? Isn't that what you do? You go to platform, you press download, and you get the data that I can see when I log into platform as an advisor? No. So data has become we've got a quote by someone, Sundberg, and it's data is the oil of the 21st century. And it absolutely is, right? Because people have suddenly started realizing, and I mean suddenly, in the last 2 or 3 years, a light switch has gone on where people have recognized the requirement for data and the requirement for good data. I think one of the biggest problems we've had in the industry is that all of the CRM systems, they only know what you've told them. Okay. So they only know because an administrator has typed in Mr. and Mrs. Miggins with their GIA, their SIP, and a policy number. And sometimes has even gone as far as entering the funds that they hold, right? That's the only way your system knew that client was a client of yours. Then you would press a button and it would go off somewhere into the ether and it would come back with a valuation, right? But if what you didn't get was everything, what you got was you went to platform A and said, I want a valuation on policy number 1234, and it gave you that back. What it didn't tell you, there were 30 other policies on there that you haven't asked for a valuation for. And that's because of data. It's not because of, you can't blame the administrators because you just can't. It's not their fault. It's the fact that nobody gave you this full data set. So, I mean, when we started Sprint 13 years ago now, we had hindsight. And that hindsight was I'd been 20 years in CRM systems. So we went to the platforms and went, we're not interested in what you give to anybody else. We don't care what format we get the data. Just give us everything you've got. Which was a bit of a revelation to them. You know, I've had platforms go, I remember calling one platform up and said, have you got transactions? And the CTO shouts around the office, has anybody ever used our transaction file? And the answer came back was, no, nobody's ever touched it. Because the back offices have all been based around what happened 25 years ago, right? And the new ones are getting there. You're all getting there and they're coming at, and yet you're starting to realize. But the existing ones, for them to go from a valuation-only data set to a full transactional data set, massive. It's huge, right? It's a rewrite. It doesn't mean they can't do it, and it doesn't mean they don't have the appetite. But they've never consumed the data in the first place. So you can't blame the platforms for having not supplied transaction data because nobody asked for it. Because they're not going to do let's build it and they will come, because they never came, ever. So nobody's ever asked for that data. So when we started asking for that data, we said we want everything. We ended up building 24 now point-to-point connections with platforms. 16 of those give us full transaction level data. We can tell you that we have got just over 3,000 transaction types from those 16 that give us transactions. And we can also tell you that 1 in 50 transactions is a flow, is an inflow or an outflow, contribution or a withdrawal. The rest is just noise, right? So now who wants noise? You just want the detail. So now we're seeing, we started off 3 years ago with everyone going, we must have transactions. It's all about transactions. It's all about transactions. And then everybody went, what are you going to do with it? I don't know. We've just been told we've got to have transactions. So, right? Now you've got nobody asking you for that. They're going, actually, what I want is I want a packet of data. I want to know a value, and a value over a different period. And I want to know inflows and outflows and last night's value. That's what I want. And I want it on demand. I don't want to store it. I don't want to go off and buy London and with servers. I don't want to store it myself. I want you to give me that data. So there's much more going on now. It's becoming much more nuanced than just give everybody a data file. Nobody wants a data file. Valuation is relatively simple, right? I tell people my chickens can do valuations. There's so little involved in a valuation file. Where everybody's struggling is with the transactions. So why would anybody want to go off and build point-to-point connections now and get transaction data? Because it's not the building it, it's the breaking it down and normalizing it and homogenizing each field into the same thing and knowing that backs payment for £132 that's going out actually isn't an outflow. It's paying for a third-party SIP. So it's an internal fee, right? You don't want to have to work that out. We have worked that out. We've spent 13 years working that out. When we started Sprint, we started with Fast Track, our client reporting solution. We honestly thought we'd have a couple of years, right, before somebody else came along and to do exactly the same thing. And we now know why nobody has. Because it's so hard. That data piece is so hard. You get platforms. When we first started, we had platforms that have a member of staff that was manually entering buys and sells and calling them the wrong thing. so you go, well, okay, how are you supposed to deal with that? Yeah. So there's lots and lots of reasons why people think they want data. But when you get down to it and you start trying to get into, okay, what are you going to do with that? The moment everyone's going, they want transactions, you go, why? Well, I want to know what the inflows and outflows are. Well, that's not transactions. That's an inflow and outflow fee. Remuneration files are the next one. Everyone's going, that's older than me, right? So the old EDI text and open text, EDI open text is literally, I think it's older than me. I think I was there at the birth of it, but we won't talk about that. But it is really, really old. Why? Right? And everybody's going, well, can we not do that better? So I think it's really interesting. I think there's been a pivotal shift in expectation from both advisor, platform, software solution. There's been a shift in we know what we want to do, and actually that's fine, but we know we need the right data to make it work. So to be successful, we've got to have that. And then you throw advisors into the mix who go, I want my own data. And you go, why? Well, we built our own system. Okay. I mean, I saw an advisor had built a fantastic client portal themselves. I mean, it was stunning. It looked horrible, right? And I told him it needed to get a skin on it because it looked from the 80s. But the functionality was brilliant. He hasn't built it to give to anybody else, but he's still got to power it. So data actually people are starting to recognize now that data is the oil. It is. It's like, what's the point in buying a Tesla and not having any electric, right? Because it's just going to sit on your drive. You can't power any system without data.
I'd love to really dig into, so you said something really, really interesting that resonated around ownership of the data. So there's this almost narrative from the industry that's like, give it all to me. I want to own it. I want to sit on it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet, but I want it. And you said you don't want to pay for storing that. You actually want answers and you want to do things. And how do where does that behavior come from, do you think, in the industry where they just want to grab it and just want to own it?
I think what's interesting, if you look at the US and you look at South Africa, you look at Australia, they have, we have, I don't know how many CFPs, the CISI will kick me for not knowing the number, but they'll have I don't even know if we're in the thousands yet. You go to the US, when they have a CFP, a Chartered Financial Planner conference, they have to hire a football stadium, right? They've got hundreds of thousands of these people there. We haven't. They tend to be big networks, so you don't have high street advisors. You don't get them. Everyone's part of a bigger network. And it's always been transaction based, right? So that's the other thing. They've always been transaction based. For us, you have product providers who went into Wrap platform. Well done, because they went in really early and they've got to be applauded for doing that. But there's been a fear. If I make my data available, somebody else is going to use it. And if somebody else uses it, do you need me? And that's really what it is. At the end of the day, the data belongs to the advisor. Doesn't belong to the platform, doesn't belong to the solution provider. It belongs to the advisor. It's the advisor's client's data. So the advisor should be able to do whatever they want. This madness of two screens and typing on one screen, reading it off one screen, typing it into another, it's just ridiculous. And you think, it made me mad. I spent a bit of time working with Voyant to help them in a couple of places. And what you found was advisors had more data in cash flow than they had in the back office, right? Because then we'd get asked, "Oh, can you grab the data from Voyant because it's better data? We've got the advisors entered everything into there," and you go, "Really? Has he?" Right? Because all you have to do in a cash flow is put in a GIA, an ISA, and a SIP. You don't have to say what platform it's on. You don't have to give it a policy number. Well, what are you supposed to do with that? That's not data, right? Because they've been manually updating it. So there's been a complete disconnect and a fear in the industry of sharing data that's been from every angle: CRM, cash flow, platform, product provider. Nobody's ever gone, well, let's just put it all in the middle. Let's just have a pot, right? And everybody feeds it. If you think about Mrs. Miggins and her GIA, her ISA, and her SIP, that's going to be needed in a CRM system. It'll be needed in suitability, product research, client portal, client reporting, CGT calculations. That's 6 places. That's the same. It's not a different one. It's the same. It's the same policy. So, I mean, we've found that, we know that we're bringing in about 30 billion for Finio, for our data hub. We're bringing in 30 billion, but we're pushing out 35 billion. Because the same, we get policy once, but it's going to multiple places because everybody wants that same policy. Now, not everybody wants all of the data, right? So CRM might want transactions, inflows, outflows, history, remuneration files, everything to do with that, right? But the cash flow doesn't need that. The cash flow just wants to know what it was last year, paid in, taken out, what it is now, to be able to do a performance report. In our solution, we do the performance reporting in Fast Track. So we need to know what it was on any day in history, what's been paid in, taken out, and what it is now. That's what we need to know to be able to calculate a performance. So everybody wants the same policy, but everybody wants a little bit of different view on that policy. And that's where we're getting really interesting at the moment.
So how do we fix it?
Well, we didn't know. We just knew there was a problem, right? And I say we at Sprint, Fast Track, 23, 24 now, platform integrations, producing a niche bit of software for a particular part of the market that's doing client reporting. So we do, valuations, performance, rebalance, fund switching. It literally is very niche. We're not doing suitability. We're not doing product research. We're not doing risk profiling. We're just producing those typical annual reports. We didn't know how to fix it. But the only way we knew how to fix it was by us going out and building those point-to-point connections. I think what happened was, I know what happened is that you think of Mark Paulson and the Landcat did that piece of Disconnected World a couple of years ago, and he said it best. He'd done the research. Think about we worked out there's about 150 third-party solution providers to the financial services industry. So that's everybody from cash flow, risk profile. And you think of it, client portal, CRM, there's about 150 firms that you could go to buy tech, right, if you're an advisor. If each of those 150 need to connect to 20 platforms, point to point, you work it out. Somebody's going to do the math now, I've said it, but it does work out at about 3,000, something like that, point to point connections. It simply doesn't make sense because we're all doing the same thing. This is the maddening point. We've all been doing the same thing, right? We're all up against the same challenges. We realized that we'd actually built a data hub. And bear in mind that we have always consumed more transaction level data than anybody else in the industry, any other third party, because we do performance reporting. You can't do performance reporting unless you've got the history and you've got transactions and you know what's an inflow and an outflow. It's physically impossible to do it. So we've had that, and then realized the only thing we were doing with it was putting it into our own application. A couple of firms asked us for it. One of the cash flow modelers called up about 5 years ago and went, look, we've just done this integration with the platform. Oh, it's not what we want to do in any way, shape or form. We don't want to do anymore. Couldn't you just give us the data? We then had platforms coming to us going, you know what? It's really interesting. You know our data better than us. Right? When there's a problem with the data, you come and tell us before we've even identified it. Could you not supply our data to other people? Because again, it's not valuations, it's transactions or subsets of that, which everyone's terrified of. Because if I'm a platform and I've got 20 connections, I've got to explain it 20 times what that particular transaction type is. So that's the idea of where a hub came from. Yeah. Now, the thing about a hub, and I've been trying to build an analogy on this, and I was thinking about supermarkets versus Amazon, right? So Sainsbury's versus, that shows what I shop, doesn't it? Sainsbury's versus Amazon. Amazon is a hub. It's nothing more, right? I literally 2 days ago, needed some new little M4 10 millimeter nut and bolt to fix my greenhouse door because the door came off and my wife's going ballistic at me because she can't close the door properly. Right. So she went to Screwfix? No. So that's a drive. That's 6 miles to drive to Screwfix to ask them if they've got it because we didn't know how to describe it. I couldn't have told you it was an M4 10 millimeter. As far as I was concerned, it was a nut and bolt that big. Right. But they actually measured it and told her what it was. Came back, ordered it on Amazon. It arrived yesterday. Right. Isn't that a data hub? It's a hub. I go to one place. and I can get everything I need. It's one connection. It's one shop I go to, in effect. I could do my shopping there now. Don't, but we could. And that's the idea behind the hub. So the idea, the way we believe to fix it is that we have one connection, not just one connection. So as a platform, I deliver all my data to one hub, and then individually, third parties connect to the hub. When they connect, they get one to many. Platform is one to many their way. Third party one to many their way. Because as a third party, I want data from 15 platforms. I don't want to build to 15 platforms. I want data from 15 platforms. But what we realized, we looked at what we would want as a software house, having had to build 23 point-to-point connections. We want it all in the same format. So if we get it from M&G, from Nucleus, from AJ Bell, from Transact, we want it all to be exact. We would want it all exactly the same, right? I don't want to have to know the nuances of the way each of the platforms stores and records data. Not interested. Just give me everything the same. So we've done two things. We've normalized data, right? So we normalize it across all of those platforms. And then we've homogenized it. So every field, doesn't matter what we get from a platform, we'll always give you the same field, right? And you might end up with some empty, right? It's a bit like an Excel spreadsheet, isn't it? You get some rows, you get some columns that might be, that doesn't matter. But what you've got is anybody can connect. And actually, when you give that file to somebody and they look at it, we've had people connect to 4 platforms, get up and live. They've got the file on Friday and we're live on Monday, right? Because they haven't had to build 4 different connections and understand the nuances of 4 connections. That's how you fix it. We fix it, and then that's platforms at the moment. Right, here's the rub, and this is where we need to get to. We need to now make it so that it's not just platforms, but the hub now has everything. So it'll bring in from, it doesn't matter what system, whether it be cash flow, suitability, risk profile, wherever the data is, you want that in a central place. And there are a couple of firms out there at the moment that are doing some data cleansing, because the biggest problem is the data's fairly rubbish. I mean, let's be honest, it is fairly rubbish. That's in most CRM systems. It doesn't oftentimes make sense. It needs sanitizing. It needs bringing up to a good quality. And there are a couple of firms out there doing that. But actually, if you had a hub in the middle that you could just suck that data in from everywhere, and when it gets it, it cleans it. Right? Because it could then go, oh, right, I can see that you've got 3 different addresses for Mrs. Miggins. We've got the same national insurance number. We know it's the right one, and it'll go off to an address file maybe and do that. That's, I think, where we want to get to. That would be the golden source of a true golden source of data. But that's how we fix it. We fix it by stop building against fantastic. I mean, the platforms are building fantastic APIs. They're brilliant, great, but I've got to build 23 of them. Right, don't want to do that. I want to build against one.
Yeah.
Right. That's how you fix it.
I mean, it's such an exciting time. Like you say, there's firms out there doing the data cleanse. There's what you guys are doing. There's so many new entrants, whether it's cash flow modeling or AI. I wonder, how do we get the industry excited about adoption of new technology and really fixing these problems and all kind of driving together towards, I guess, the best outcome for consumers, which is really what we're all about.
I think that there's a couple of things that we need to do. First of all, and I think it's something that I've learned over being sales for the last 30 years and selling tech, you got to understand your market, right? And don't try and be all things to all people. It doesn't work, right? The days of the one size fits all has gone. Everybody now is coming out with a niche product for a niche market, and it's understanding the personas of that market. You've got to wear their shoes. You've got to walk the walk with them. You can't go in and go, oh, we know what you need. Do you really? Why do you? Where's the evidence on that? If you can do that, you tap into a vein of discontent in the industry, because there is a vein of discontent. I mean, advisors typically hate their CRM. It's just a case. I've never spoken to an advisor that went, you know what, my CRM is the best thing I ever bought, and I love it, and I can't wait to come in the morning and turn it on. Don't ever get that. What you get is it's absolutely rubbish, and you go, you know what, it really isn't rubbish. What's rubbish are your expectations. You're expecting it to do everything, and it shouldn't do everything, right? So use it for what it's good at. Get a separate bit of tech that's brilliant at doing something else. And I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to make advisors, and you're dragging them kicking and screaming. It's just into the 20th century, not about 21st. You've got to make advisors realize that they can be really good at their job if they pay attention to the detail, because a lot of advisors don't have to pay attention to the detail. They absolutely know their subject to the nth degree, right? Could get up in front of 1,000 people and tell you about pension transfers, about why the Henderson Emerging Markets Fund is the best fund in the world, right? And about, they could do that. What they couldn't do is give you the reason behind it and the data and where does it come from. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to start getting advisors to understand that tech is going to drive their world. The tech suppliers, and I think it's fantastic there's so many new ones coming on board. We love supporting new tech because it's brilliant, because we were new tech, right? We didn't get any support. It was just graft. And it's taken us 13 years. I'd love to see you do it in a year. I would. I'd love to see you get to where we are in 2 years. I really would, right? And if we can help you on that journey, then that's great, because it does everybody else good in the industry. We are all helping each other. One of the issues and problems we had with Fast Track is that we weren't replacing anything, right? Because there's nothing better with tech than walking in and going, you've got a blue one. Well, look at our yellow one. Isn't this better, right? We were walking in and going, you haven't got one. And we've got one it's purple with white spots. So people are going, I don't even know what that is. What does it do? It's brand new. I've never seen that before. So the opportunity is there. We've just got to really concentrate on your market. If you're a tech provider, I'm going to tell you how to suck eggs here. But concentrate on your market. Know who your market really is, right? And spend time with them. And once you've done that, they will understand you and you will fully understand them and your life will be a breeze.
Gary, I've loved every minute of this conversation. It's been so enjoyable. I feel like we could talk for days. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.